Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about adverb clauses. So first of all, adverb clause is one of the three kinds of dependent clauses. Remember in English we have independent clauses and dependent clauses. So adverb clauses is one of the dependent clauses along with adjective clauses and noun clauses. Now, a dependent clause begins with a subordinating conjunction, like because, after, or although. And we know that dependent clauses must be connected to an independent clause. And if it isn't, it's a fragment, it's a sentence error. Here we see an example of a sentence with an adverb clause. I don't understand the homework because it is very complicated. Here we have an independent clause and a dependent clause, that is an adverb clause. And we know it's an adverb clause because it starts with a subordinating conjunction, because. If we try to use this as a sentence, because it is very complicated, it is not correct. It's a fragment because it's a dependent clause that needs to be connected to an independent clause. So something important to remember when you are working with adverb clauses is when to use a comma. So if the adverb clause comes first, you follow it with a comma, as we see in this sentence. If the adverb clause comes second, we typically do not use a comma. Another thing, this is an error that many students make, is that they use more than one conjunction in a sentence. For example, they might say, even though we didn't speak the language, but we were able to communicate well. So here they use two conjunctions, a subordinating conjunction and a coordinating conjunction, or a fan voice. We don't want to use two, so we have to take off one. So here, this would make it correct. Even though we didn't speak the language, we were able to communicate well. Take off the but. So there are many kinds of subordinating conjunctions, and you have to choose the one with the correct meaning to show the relationship between the clauses in your sentence. It might be a time subordinating conjunction, reason or cause, or one that shows a concession or a contrast. There are many. So I'm going to talk about some of those different subordinating conjunctions and what meaning they have. For time, you might choose after or before. After I finish the W50 final, I'm going out to celebrate. So this adverb clause tells when the action in the main clause is going to happen. Before the spring semester starts, Imal is going to Afghanistan. Again, adverb clause shows when the action in the main clause will happen. As soon as I finish the W50 final, I'm going out to celebrate. This is a little different than after. After can mean any time after the W50 final. As soon as means immediately after finishing the final, I'm going out to celebrate. When we have a vacation, we usually go to bed later. This shows more of a routine, like every time that we go on vacation, we go to bed later. With since, we're talking about action that started in the past and continues to the present. So we typically use that present perfect verb tense to show that. And while we use when we're talking about two actions that are happening at the same time. While I was working, my husband prepared dinner. And we can also use subordinating conjunctions that show reason or the cause of something happening. The number of obese children is increasing due to the fact that many children are inactive. So this phrase introduces the clause that shows why the number of obese children is increasing. The number of obese children is increasing because many children are inactive. Again, shows the reason why the number of obese children is increasing. Hospital wait times are very long as doctors must help many patients. Again, as introduces the reason why for the action in the main clause. Since he was late for class, he missed the test. Here, since introduces the reason why he missed the test. Now, we also have subordinating conjunctions that show a surprise, a contrast. Although she was late for class, comma, the professor still allowed her to take the final. So here, it was a surprise, right? That the professor still allowed her to take the final. So we use although. He ate 4 servings of dessert, even though he is on a diet. So again, shows a surprise, a contrast. Now notice that here it says, many times commas are used with although and even though, even if the adverb clause comes after the main clause. So here, it's an exception, right, with although, and even though we might use a comma here. Here's another example. Despite the fact that he doesn't drink, he went to 3 bars last night. Again, another surprise or contrast. Typically, we use these, although, even though, despite the fact that, to contrast 2 features of the same thing. For example, here, it's the same subject, he, but we're contrasting 2 features. Here are some more, whereas and while. Whereas and while, we use them more typically to contrast 2 different things or 2 different people, for example. My son is quiet, comma, whereas my daughter is quite talkative. While my daughter is talkative, comma, my son is very quiet. So notice we're contrasting 2 different things, 2 different people. And again, with while and whereas, we often use commas, even if the adverb clause comes second. But remember, while can also be used to show a time relationship. And in that case, do not use a comma if the adverb clause comes second. So here we have a short practice, and there are some errors in each sentence. Go ahead and pause at this time so that you can think about the sentences. So let's talk about the errors. Although, oh darn, I actually corrected these. So there's a bit of a problem on this. I actually corrected these errors when I was doing a previous video. So I'm just going to pause this. Okay, so I've corrected that. Although the price of gas is increasing, but we continue to use more of it. So this one has an error because it uses 2 conjunctions. We can only use one conjunction in each complex sentence. So we need to take off either although or but. So I'm going to go ahead and remove but. Whoops. Although the price of gas is increasing, we continue to use more of it. Now it is correct. Number 2, because Nguyen doesn't like the sweater that her grandmother gave her, she wears it often. So this sentence is grammatically correct, but it doesn't show the correct relationship. So it doesn't make sense that she wears it often for the reason that she doesn't like it. So I think it shows more of a contrast. So we can change this to although or even though. Even though Nguyen doesn't like the sweater that her grandmother gave her, she wears it often. Makes more sense now. The number of obese children is increasing, whereas many children are inactive. Again, doesn't show the correct relationship. Here it has a cause, right? This is the cause of this. So, or the reason why it happens. The number of obese children is increasing. We can use because, since, or as. because many children are inactive. We read that book last semester even though it was a requirement of the course. So here again, doesn't really make sense. We need to use a different coordinating conjunction that shows the correct relationship. Here we can use, again, it's a cause. So this is the cause or the reason why this happens. We read the book last semester, and we can use because again, or we can use since or as, since it was a requirement of the course. After my friend spent hours writing her essay, she received an A on it. This is correct. It just needs a comma because the adverb clause comes first. Okay, everyone, good luck on your quiz, and I hope that you learned a lot about adverb clauses.